Good afternoon, 6-4 parents. Mr. Hagedorn here with our weekly update. Next week in math, we will have an NC check-in on Friday. This will be the last NC check-in for the kids in 6th grade. They took their last ELA one last week. They'll take their last math one next week. All right, so that's the 16th, Friday the 16th, they'll have an NC check-in. All right, in Math 6 Plus, we finished up Unit 7 this week. We started Unit 8, which is going to be our data unit. We talked about asking good statistical questions and what makes a question statistical. And we started today getting into actually representing data in different models. We used a bar graph and a dot plot today. Next week, we're going to start talking about histograms and box plots. And then we'll get into kind of interpreting different representations and what they're telling us about the data. Math 6, basically the same thing. We finished up our Unit 7 today. The kids had their quiz today. And next week we will start our Unit 8, our data unit. We will start by just talking about statistical questions and then getting into dot plots and histograms and box plots and comparing those representations. Please make sure you are checking your students' grades. We have some grades that are slipping quite a bit from students, so make sure you're keeping an eye on those grades in Power Schools. All right, have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.
Hi, everybody. In ELA, we're continuing with our literature circles for the next 2 weeks. Our meetings are on Tuesdays, so all the kids need to make sure they have their required reading plus their figurative language one-pager and their unfamiliar words and figurative language activity that's on Canvas. All of that needs to be done by Tuesday. We also, next week, our comprehension quiz is going to be moved from Wednesday to Friday, just since we're having shortened classes on Friday due to the math check-in. I thought that would be a better use of our time. And then that's all I have for you.
All right, everybody. This week we finished up our week with plants with the Hunger Games. We decided we got 7 different categories. Students made selections based on traits, what would make the best plant to survive the Hunger Games. So on Monday, we are going to get in the arena. It's a board game format. Kids will be playing different rounds of a board game with their super plants, and we're going to find out which kid in each class has picked the right traits to live the longest in our arena game. So that'll be Monday. After that, we're going to get into flower reproduction quickly. We're going to do like 2 to 3 days on flower reproduction. Students are really unfamiliar with it, but it's one of those standards. It's like a right there standard. So you label parts of a flower, you figure out what part does what, then you realize that flowers make new flowers. So that's basically where we'll go with that. And then we will be moving into our last unit of the year, which is space, and we'll start that on Friday. Weather, better stay well because we have a soccer tournament this weekend.
Okay, we'll talk social studies real quickly. As we are finishing the unit on social structures, we've got all the content after today in our head. So we've talked about different social structures. We've talked about what social structures are. We've talked about the Egyptian social structures, the Japanese social structure, the Roman social structure, and the Indian caste system. And then today, students actually got assigned a role from one of those 4. And you can talk about it with your kid today. They're actually going to write a story as if they were kind of that person, or if they tell a story of that person's life. So they have to know a little bit about the civilization, what it was like there. They have to know a little bit about where they fit into that social hierarchy, who was below them, who might be above them, who might be around them, and how they might feel about that, and how people might treat them. And so they're going to write a little thing called a bio poem, and we're going to do all of that next week. And then we're going to have a dinner party, and I'm going to send out a note next week to get some volunteers to maybe bring in some snacks for our dinner party, where each of the kids are going to sit at tables, and they're going to be sitting with people from different social structures and different societies, and they're going to share their poems, and they're going to talk about who was the most powerful person at the table and how people were treated, and just have a little fun conversation around social structures. And that'll be towards the end of next week. We'll then get into our unit on decline of civilization, how civilizations fall, which is a short little unit, and then we finish out the year with the Middle Ages, Renaissance, and Reformation. So as Mr. Hagedorn said, check the grades. We're finding that kids are starting to get lower grades, and we probably think that maybe some parents aren't checking in or checking behind them as much as they maybe used to. If you don't have access to PowerSchool on your own personal device, ask your kid to bring up PowerSchool on their Chromebook, because all of them can access it, and then they can show it to you on their Chromebook. So there really is not a lot of excuses if you want to check in and see what's going on with some grades. All right, have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next week.